Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, you guys. Welcome to Thursday Talks on Heal Black Joy. And in today's conversation, we're talking about how to set clear boundaries for ourselves and others. Hi, I'm Lola Troy, the host and curator of Heal Black Joy, the learning platform for our community to heal our Black joy with tangible and attainable programs for the mind, body, soul, relationship, and businesses. And today, my personal guest is Mr. Damian McGee. Damian is a boundaries coach, the author of Move Over, I'm Driving, a roadmap for reclaiming control over your life. He's also a motivational speaker who is also known as the situation coach. So I know he is in the chat. I'm going to invite him in. Hi,
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are
All right.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's your week going so
Good, good.
far?
It's been interesting, but it is going, so I can't complain.
Well, everybody welcome Damian McGee, the situation coach.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! So, Damian, this week we were talking about all of our content was pertaining to boundaries. It's been such a hot topic. I mean, it's been a hot topic on talk shows, it's been a hot topic on social media. Um, and we're just identifying what boundaries are.
Right.
I want to have this conversation with you because I know that you're the boundaries coach and you can give us great insight on this subject matter.
I think so. I hope so.
I hope so. I mean, I think that from our previous conversation, I know that, we are going to dig into some things. So
Absolutely.
what exactly is a boundaries coach before we get into it?
So basically, and that's where the whole situation coach comes from. What I always tell people is, I'm not a life coach. It's not my job to tell people how to live their entire life. Life has various phases and various things that are interesting to us or matter to us at different points. But we all run into various situations that get us stuck or that have us questioning the way we are doing things and how we want to move forward. And so that's where I come in. And 9 times out of 10, most people ended up in that situation because they didn't set clear boundaries in the previous situation that got them to that point, right?
Mm,
So whether that's a relationship, a friendship, the type of employment they wanted, their living arrangements, whatever it is, people's self betrayal of their own boundaries is usually what ends them up in many of these situations.
self-betrayal. If
Yes.
anybody can identify with that, please put it in the chat. Like, that's me, right? I love your definition. I've been following all of your posts,
Thank
and I
you.
love your definition of boundaries, which is it's equivalent to giving a damn about you.
I mean, that's what else is there, right? It's
Right.
everything
Exactly.
is everyone, not everyone. Most people spend a lot of time focusing on how to get others to, be drawn to them and to be what they want them to be. And a lot of times we completely forget to put the exact same amount of energy into who we want to project, right? Who do we
Right.
want to be? Who do we want the world to see? Because that will actually dictate the type of person that you attract, the type of environment you attract yourself to. And so you don't have to spend all of that time trying to figure out where do I want to be? Is this person right? Because they will stay or go as they see who you are and if that fits in with where they want to be.
Right. I love that. I love that. I want to read something to you. I wrote a blog post this week. This is so timely. I wrote a blog post for a company called Hello Alika,
Okay.
brand for self-care awareness month that came out this week, and I was pretty excited about it. And I wanted to read it to you, and I want to hear your thoughts
Sure.
about it because I think you can speak some of the things that that I shared.
Okay.
So It's the blog post is called The Journey to Know.
Okay.
N-O. Okay.
Yep.
Sometimes I find myself riddled with guilt after exercising my power to say no. I'm an African-American woman in my late 40s, college graduate, excelling in my career, running a successful business, divorced, and mom of one young adult daughter. I wear many hats, as most of us do, and even though I pride myself on having excellent time management skills, I still struggle with telling people no. Why is that? It's because I never made it a priority to set aside a sacred space within myself where I can rest my mind, my body, and my spirit. Even when I'm offered the space and time to rest, I would still choose to keep going out of a feeling of guilt. You know, the guilt that is woven with my ancestors in mind, the guilt that says, girl, you better keep moving because your ancestors sacrificed so that you can even have this opportunity. Keep going. I remember watching an interview that Oprah did with Dr. Maya Angelou a few years back, and this beloved poet and civil rights activist expressed the best advice she had ever given her son, and that was, there is a place within you that you must keep pristine, clean, where nobody has the right to violate you. Nobody, not your mother, not your father, not your friend, not your spouse, etc. Because that's just might be the place that you might meet God. Her advice to her son pierced my soul. I remember taking in that moment with a long sigh and realizing that I did not know boundaries. What did it mean to save a safe space for me? I wanted to go through the television and ask Queen Mother, so you're saying I get to have a place just for me and I get to say no to people and myself? I had so many questions after that interview because I thought I could set boundaries. I thought that I could set boundaries, but it was such a cognitive dissonance to my being. I could not wrap my mind around being able to tell someone no. A lot of women of color do not know about boundaries, nor have they ever set them for themselves. We simply never witnessed it within our own family dynamics. So I'm going to read this next part because I think this is key with a lot of people.
Okay.
I started to examine myself and go back in my history to see if I saw boundaries growing up. I often wondered why I never really heard the word no uttered from my grandmother's or mother's lips. Were they afraid to say no because it gave them a voice in a world that wasn't used to hearing their voices? Or were they modeling behaviors of what they saw their mothers and grandmothers do? I'm a 70s baby that grew up in a two-parent household. Very traditional in the sense where my dad brought the structure and safety in our home, but it was my mother's spirit that brought the warmth and love. Although they had the same career as educators, my mother was a force to be reckoned with. She was self-motivating, intelligent, innovative, and a powerful teacher and administrator who always excelled in her career, but somehow she was always overworked and overpaid for what she contributed to society. She never took pause to refill her cup because she was ancestrally wired to keep going even when she was tired. She also never complained about her cup running over. She did it with grace and ease from my vantage point. But I'm sure today she would express needing moments of rest and solitude. And she was my blueprint of how I navigated my life. And it goes on in the blog post where I identified modeled behavior after my mom.
Right.
Same thing, not resting, not taking vacations in between my projects, you know, not telling people no, people pleasing, doing things that I didn't necessarily want to do, but I did them anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of what you said that I could touch on. So we can touch on as much of it as you want to, or as little. Where I would start is I actually experienced a very different upbringing in that I had a single mother and I heard no all the time. I heard no when I wanted something. I heard no when I wanted to go somewhere. I heard no when I heard men trying to ask her out. Like, we heard no regularly. And so much beyond the point of it being healthy, to be completely honest. Like, we thought no was the only answer you could get to things.
Right.
But what we learned, my brother and I, what we learned is that your priorities are bigger than the people around you, right? And
Mm.
so a lot of times what happens is people shift their priorities based on the people that they encounter. And so if I say to myself, and I can give you a million examples, but if I say, hey, I'm not going to drink anymore. I don't drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a best friend who shows up in town and he or she is like, yo, let's go have a drink.
Right.
I now have the decision to stick to my boundary, my rule, my line based on whatever my priority for that was, or to decide that this person and their presence is bigger than that priority.
Mm-hmm.
Either one is fine. Like you're allowed to make either decision. Just understand that when you shift that boundary, the
Mm-hmm.
responsibility is only yours. Because what happens is people will shift the boundary and then they'll wake up the next day and go, man, I can't believe you made me drink. I can't
Right.
believe you had me out there drinking, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's not how this works, right?
Right.
You set your boundaries, you hold your boundaries. And so when you have a clearly defined destination, I think that makes the no easier. My mom's destination when I was growing up was very clearly raise two boys with as few distractions as humanly possible,
Mm-hmm.
with as much knowledge as she had, with every bit of energy and effort that she had. And that was it. To the point that she severed relationships with people she knew. She severed relationships with us. I mean, like, our relationships aren't great, but she accomplished her goal. She knew what her goal was, and she
So,
accomplished it.
in talking about your mom
Mm-hmm.
and having the conversation that we had
Mm-hmm.
this past week,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that she stuck to her script, that life script?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And and that's the thing is people look at other people's situations and say, oh well, how can you do this? You and your mom don't have a great relationship anymore. What was the goal? To some people, their goal is I want my child to be my best friend till the day they die, and I want them sitting next to me, and that is their goal. And that is fine. That was not my mother's goal.
Right.
My mother's goal was I'm going to raise two black men who function in this society, who will be successful, who can fend for themselves, who will not be statistics, who will not be quotas, who will not be any of those things.
Right.
To the extent, and she made it very clear, I'm not trying to be your friend. That's
Right.
not my objective, right?
We grew up
So
with the same dynamic.
exactly. So when people look at that from the outside and they're like, oh, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate by your standards. It the goal was accomplished by ours. And
Mm,
so
that's
that I mean, but
big.
it's just a difference. It's just a difference. And I think that's that's the thing. So many people when you talked about feeling this guilt of saying no, I always challenge people as to why you are guilty. Why am I guilty? If you ever encounter, a vegan who is convicted that they are not going to eat meat or whatever because of whatever their reason is,
Hmm.
they do not feel guilty ordering a salad ever
Right.
because their conviction, their priority is bigger than your feelings, right? And so when people feel guilty to saying no, I always ask, one, why are you saying no? Right? Are you saying no because you actually believe it? Are you saying no or why are you not saying no? Are you not saying no because you don't think you can? Are you not saying no because you think you've been conditioned not to? Like, what do you really want to say?
I can tell you in my instance, the
Okay.
guilt was accommodation.
Accommodating
We
who?
everybody else.
But you.
Everybody else. I modeled that behavior after what I saw.
Hmm.
When you don't see someone in your household, your blueprint, not
Hmm.
saying no, you basically kind of condition yourself to not say no. And that's what happened. I mean, and I think this is a good way, a good segue to my next question is
Right.
why in our community specifically is it common to not set boundaries with ourselves and others? I've noticed a lot in my friend group, my colleague group, of black women and black
Hmm.
men, that don't even know what boundaries were. Like when I saw that interview with Dr. Maya Angelou, I was like, wait a minute, we get to actually tell people no? Like that's a real
Right.
thing?
Right.
Like that was a foreign concept to me. So why is it within our particular community? Because our white counterparts, they know how to say no, right? They can really identify with saying no and what they want to do versus what they don't want to do. I think sometimes we have a harder time with understanding and clearing that path where we can say no, mean it, stand firm in it, and walk it out.
So I think it's a couple things. I think when you set goals, clearly defined goals and objectives, those become very easy, right? If you're talking about our community specifically, what is taught that can be goals is even limited as times. So if I look at friends of mine who are white, who just don't look like me, they may have been taught like, hey, listen, if you want to open $1 million business, like you can do that. Here's what you need to do. Just go this route. Don't let people deter you. You'll be fine. I also knew people who look like me who've been told, nah, that's not for us. You can't really do that. What you need to do is get you a friend who's going to open $1 million business and just hope they'll bring you along and work for you. Right. Well, if that's your logic, you don't know who that person that's going to bring you along is going to be. So you're not in a position to take no, because you got to take everything that's given to you.
That's
if
good.
You're told, no, you can support your friend's business, but you can also start your own $1 million business, but you're going to have to get rid of some of these friends who are pulling you down. You're going to have to get rid of some of these bad relationships. You're going to have to do this. Then you begin to condition even us to say, so I got to say no. And with that, I think one of the things that happens that I think is very damaging is people don't, in general, but especially minority and poorer communities, don't know the difference between like friendship and relationship versus allegiance. We do stuff out of allegiance to people.
Ooh.
Like, this is my neighborhood. I have to do this. No, you don't, right? Like, but we've created this allegiance to things that don't return anything to us. And so now we're scared, if you will, to operate independently because you have to turn on the things that you've pledged your allegiance to. I have to leave this neighborhood. I have to leave these 10 people who've been my friends since I was 5 because they don't actually have aspirations. But I've literally pledged my allegiance to go to jail with them, to commit crimes with them, to hang out and be nothing with them. But I don't have a goal. I just have pledged my allegiance and I don't know how to turn that off. And the sooner people recognize the difference, the sooner it is to create separation and potentially walk away if that's what you need to do.
So we're going to pivot because I think this is good.
Okay.
Can you talk about the difference in the allegiance and the relationship?
In a
like
romantic
you define
relationship?
what allegiance is, but what does that look like for the young Black male who is pledging his allegiance to his friends that have no ambition, no goals, nothing set in stone? They have no blueprint of going anywhere. They're just hanging out in the hood. This is what they do every single day.
Yeah.
And this one particular person, because it's always that one that has the ambition to get out, but somehow they are just connected to that friend group and they pledge allegiance to that. So how do they identify who they need to keep around and who they need to cut off?
They need to stop making that the focus. Like everybody starts trying to figure out who has to stay and who has to go and how do I operate in this space. Like, no, people don't talk about what do you want to do. Like when I coach people, my question is, What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be? Well, if, as long as my friends are, no, that's not what I asked you. If literally no one else existed, what do you want to accomplish? Otherwise, you are making your goals and setting your destinations conditionally. You're setting them based on the fact that everyone will still like me. Everyone will still support this. Everyone will still be by my side when I get there. And suffice it to say, that's not reality.
It's
And
not.
so if you set your goals that way, you are almost guaranteed to get off track, because as soon as someone turns their back on you, that wasn't part of the plan. And now you don't know how to operate in that. And so what I mentioned to you the other day, what I always tell people is sit down first and write what I call the movie of your life, right? What does your life look like? What are the scenes? What is the setting? What is it? Is it a comedy? Is it a romance? Is it adventure? What is it? Write that movie. Then once the movie is written, now let's go find the cast of characters that will fit into the movie. What you're saying and what people do is they go, all right, I gotta find my cast first. Who's going to be my leading man? Who's going to be my leading woman? Who's going to be my supporting actors? Okay, now I got these 20 people around me. Hey, y'all, let's make a movie. Well, you don't know if any of them can act. You don't know what any of them want to do. You don't know if any of them want the same kinds of movies that you do. So stop, right? Create the movie first. Make the plot. I always say, stick to the script. Make the plot more important than the characters.
That's good. Make
right?
the plot more important than the characters.
There are countless movies that I'm sure many people have heard over time that when you go out and you hear people talk about the movie, they say, oh, well, originally when we wrote this movie, we thought we would cast so-and-so. Or when we first wrote this movie, we were hoping so-and-so would be involved. And they weren't, right? But the movie is now up for an Oscar or is crushing it at the box office. It's because the writer and the director were like, look, this is the movie. Period. This is the movie. Right. If so-and-so doesn't want to be in this movie, cool, we'll find somebody else. If so-and-so thinks this isn't, they want to change the script, we're not doing it. We will find someone else. And if we live our lives like that, then by the time we get where we're going and we've lived our movie the way we wanted it to be, all the characters are exactly who they needed to be. And then instead of saying, man, I remember when I missed out on so-and-so and I thought me and so-and-so were going to be friends, or I thought we were going to be dating, you look back and you go, everybody who is here is exactly who was supposed to be here. And that's all you need.
Right. So I love the concept of sticking to your movie. Mm-hmm. And I can say personally that in my earlier years, I was focusing on the characters of the movie and not the actual script. Right. And I just had this conversation with my daughter the other day because, she's young adult, starting to date. And I told her, I said, listen, you bring the warm and fuzzy. We get that. You bring the warm and fuzzy. Right. So people will literally attach themselves to you because you bring the warm and fuzzy. Mm-hmm. Do not engage in relationships that will take you out of what you're supposed to be doing in life. Right? Yep. Because what you will do is you will literally attach yourself to someone else's movie and you will be the character in their movie bringing the warm and fuzzy.
Well, right? And here's what's even better about characters. If you get a crappy character in the movie you wrote and it bombs, people don't want a movie from you anymore. The character will move on and go be in another movie. They'll be fine. The responsibility for crappy movies is with the writer. It's not with the characters. It's the same reason you see people get out of friendships, get out of relationships, get out of all these situations and literally be left in shambles going, I don't understand what happened. And all the characters, all the villains are on playing another role in
In
someone
another
else's.
movie.
Gone.
Gone.
Not even worried about it.
Wow. So, speaking of sticking to your life movie,
Mm-hmm.
what are those things? What are those identifying factors that allows you to stick to your script and have characters, but not necessarily making those characters main characters in your movie?
So I think there's a couple of things when you deal with the people around you that will kind of identify those who could and should stick around, right? And it's usually opposite of what people believe to be or what's intuitive. It is not the person who always has your back and is always on your side. It is the person who supports you, but is able to call you out when you are off track, right? It is the person who can look at you and say, I hear you, but you're not seeing everything, right?
Right.
It's if you don't have people who are challenging you, who are bringing you to another level, they are probably not the right characters because they will exhaust you and then they will move on when you have nothing left. Now, this is also reciprocal, right? If I have a bunch of people around me that I add zero value to, I'm probably not around the right people. Every single one of the people in my life that I call friends, and it's not a lot, that I call friends,
Right.
they are, one of them lives in Rhode Island and she is happily married and they have 3 kids and like whatever, but she has made me a better human being more times than I can count. I have a friend who I think I haven't seen him in 3 years already. We've known each other since my first day of boot camp in the Marine Corps. And every time we talk, we challenge each other's way of thinking.
Right.
And that's enough, right?
Right.
Because the other thing too is once you get, we have these, and everybody's different. Some people need friends that are there every day, and I don't.
I don't either.
And I have stuff to do, and my friends have stuff to do.
Right.
And so as long as there's an understanding that I am here when you need me, we will make sure we connect on a regular basis. Anybody, if you have someone who has enough time to sit around and talk to you 2 hours a day, every day of the month, every month of the year, neither of you are doing enough in your life.
Right. You're not being productive.
Absolutely not.
So what does that boundary conversation look like for those that don't need to be around? What is that boundary conversation? Because you're deciding now. You're talking about people that now want to stick to their life script. They want to keep going in the direction to meet their goals and achieve their goals.
Yep.
And they have that group of people that they've had allegiance to for whatever reason, whether it's, the homie, the girlfriend that, that was my college roommate or, sorority sister or whatever, but might not necessarily need to be a part of my life script. She's not growing. I'm growing in another direction. What does that conversation look like with that person?
So there's a couple of things. I think whenever, there are people that you need to inform, if you will, as you just set new boundaries and you start moving. Mm-hmm. And then there are people that may do something that you feel like crosses a boundary and now you need to address it, right?
Right.
So we'll start with those people first. And I call it the D plus D method, the letter D, right? D plus D. The first D is discuss it. Like, we need to talk about it. We need to air it out. We don't need to fight. We don't need to yell. I just need to tell you, like, hey, that thing was not okay, right? And so then from there, the second D, and the conversation is as intense or as long as you need it to be. But the second D in that equation, you get 3 options. You can either dismiss the behavior and move on, right? Hey, you didn't know. I'm telling you that thing wasn't okay. We're good now. Don't worry about it. I'm going to dismiss it. I'm going to distance myself because I love you, but like, we're in two different spaces right now,
Right.
and I'll see you at Christmas, but you need some space and I need some space,
Right.
or flat out disconnect. It has been great. Our time in each other's lives has served its purpose, and it is time to move on. And the problem is, people act like there's a whole lot of space in between those. There really isn't. Either you are going to dismiss the behavior and move on with your relationship and everything is fine. You need to create space, or you need to move on. Those are your three options. And so those are for the people who I would say have done something. Now, if we're just talking about you are kind of growing, you're evolving, and you want to communicate to people around you like, hey, this is no longer okay with me, or I think I want to change this. There's not a person I've coached with any boundary that we can't get down to 2 sentences. It takes 2, because that's the other thing. People feel like they need to explain things. And let me rephrase that. People feel like they need to justify things.
Justify.
Right?
Right.
And so I can say, hey, listen, so I have decided that I'm no longer going to spend every Friday and Saturday night out in the club. And that is really because I spend too much money. It's not healthy. And I'd really just like to put my energy somewhere else.
Right.
That's it. 2 sentences. I don't owe any other explanation. Well, why are you not coming out with us? Well, what am I supposed to do? Well, who's going to drive? Like, none of that is my problem.
Right.
2 sentences. I have yet to see, and I'm sure there's always an exception to the rule. If you can get your boundary to 2 sentences, a 1-sentence statement and a 1-sentence explanation, you remove all room for confusion. And then it just becomes a choice for the people around you whether or not they're going to abide by it or not.
Okay. I want to go back to the previous example of the 3 Ds. We've set the boundary and we've discussed it, right?
Okay.
But you don't necessarily dismiss the person.
No, you don't dismiss them.
Okay.
You can dismiss the act. You can distance yourself from them, or you can disconnect from them and be done with them.
What do you say to those people that don't know how to disconnect from people that have toxic boundaries?
You are making a conscious decision to suffer any and everything that comes to you. It's not hard. This is not complicated. This is when you see someone doing something that blatantly goes against what you want, what you need, what you feel you deserve. And that's a little tricky, which we can talk about in a little bit. But generally speaking, when someone does something that blatantly disregards where you want to stand and how the way you want your life to go, your inability or unwillingness to separate is your way of saying you are more important than me, number 1. And number 2, I am going to consciously, because you've already shown me what you're capable of.
Right.
So I am consciously going to accept whatever else you give me.
It's like you're abandoning yourself.
You can only pick you or them.
Woo! Somebody write that in the chat. You can only pick you or them. The choice is yours. You posted this week, should you change or adjust your boundaries?
Yes. So boundaries do not have to be in cement, right? Boundaries can change. What is good for you today may evolve over time. There was a period in my life where spending certain money was outside of the boundary. I had goals, I had things I was trying to do. I was not going to do anything past X, right? Once I got to a different position in my life, once I accomplished a couple of goals that I wanted to accomplish, that got to free up. I got to move that boundary a little bit. Okay, I will do this. I won't do this now. That's okay. Shifting your boundaries is okay. What's not okay is letting someone else tell you how improperly placed your boundary is, right?
Mm.
Like you hear all these things where, what I'll put it to you this way. In my entire life, I have always found myself having more respect for people who did not change their boundaries, even if it meant I never spoke to them again.
And why is that?
Because one, it would cause me to question which was more important, the person or my trying to win in the moment, right? Like,
Right.
am I trying to see who can do what? And two, it made me want to be better. Imagine meeting somebody that you think you are equally, yoked with, if you will, and they set boundaries that reach a point of saying, you can't be in this space right now. If that doesn't, now, a lot of people will get in their feelings and get emotional and who you think you are and whatever, but take time and ask yourself, what does that mean? Why are they saying that? What am I not doing? Now, it doesn't automatically mean you're wrong either. You could just have two different boundaries, two different desires, two different goal sets. But I've always, anytime someone has challenged me with their boundary, it has made me look at me differently. It has made me really consider, am I as good as I think I am? I think I can be in that space, but when they go, look, you got to step it up because that behavior is not, I've had friends, I had a friend of mine who we didn't talk for 15 years because what I was doing didn't fit what should have been the way we conducted our friendship. And the irony was, for 15 years, I would repeat the stuff he would say to me when we stopped talking as advice to other people because it stuck so much. Fast forward to a year ago, and we finally talked again, and I was like, yo, I don't even think you understand. You holding me accountable and kicking me out of your space forever changed my life. And it changed the way I treated people from that moment forward.
That's good.
You're not doing anybody favors when you move your boundaries to keep them around. You're just not.
You're definitely not doing yourself any favors.
And that's the worst part, is the person you are betraying the most is yourself. Every time. It never fails.
I love the archetype of successful people, and they typically, there are several books that are written about successful people, and they typically have very similar characteristics. There have been several books written about them. The Millionaire Mindset. I'm drawing a blank on some of the books, but what I notice about very successful people is that they set clear boundaries, not only with themselves and others.
Absolutely.
And people that struggle for success or struggle to gain success do not have clear and set boundaries for themselves and others. Can you speak to what are some common boundaries that successful people have?
Time is number one. Hands down, time is number one. I would argue that energy is number two. Where are you putting your energy? You always hear people say like, oh, it's so exhausting when I hang out with them. Then why are you hanging out with them? Like,
Right.
Some of the stuff that people will say to me when we're talking, I'm just like, I don't, and I get it. Sometimes you have to hear it, right? But it's ironic that people answer their own questions most of the time. And usually, and this is more relationship than business, but I think it goes together, signs that something is not okay is when you say things like, well, we'll just see how it plays out. Okay, so you've decided that you don't have any more control. You're just going to go along for the ride. Figure out what happens. Not the way you should live your life if you plan to be successful, business-wise or personally, in personal relationships. when people say things like, I know, I know this is what I said, but. So you are arguing your own logic away
Mm-hmm.
without the help of anyone else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or my favorite is when people say, normally I wouldn't do this, but, right? Now, they're either
Yeah.
lying and they do it all the time,
Right. Right. Right.
or they are removing their boundary for whatever reason they think they need to. And again, we're all adults, right? We're grown. There will be times in life, be it romantically, physically, professionally, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that you will say, you know what? This is normally the rule. It's not the rule today. Do you? You're an adult. But the blame and responsibility for any consequence of said choice
Mm-hmm.
is yours and is yours only.
Mm.
Because no one can move your boundary
But you.
but you.
Yeah.
People can ignore it. People can disregard it. People cannot like it. But they can't move it. They can't operate in your space unless you allow them to.
So you said successful people have boundaries, clear boundaries. You said
Time.
time is one.
Time is number one. Energy is number two. And they have a clear destination. And
Mm.
so you had, I actually, when you were talking about your blog and you had said something like, you had said no one has the right to violate you. And when you talk about business and when you talk about the way you move forward in business, there's a clear destination. I'm going to amass a business that makes, 6 figures a year,
Mm-hmm.
whatever your goal is. Does not mean everything will be perfect. It does not mean everything is going to happen the way you want it to. It just means that you've reached a mindset of being unstoppable, right? Of not taking any other option but accomplishing that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you were talking, I wrote down like a detour. If I tell you I'm coming to your house and I will be at your house before the end of this week, no matter what, it does not matter how many roads have construction, how many detours I have to go on. If that is the commitment I make, then I'm going to get there. That
Right.
is what successful business people look like. They reach that goal when everybody in their family was like, "You crazy? That's not gonna happen." They've reached that goal when all their friends were like, "Yo, we going out. Why are you still doing that thing?" Right? That was their destination, and they refused to be deterred from that. If you can manage your time, your energy, and have a clearly defined destination that people cannot deter you from, you're good.
That's good. That's good. I just been taking a couple of notes just to
Yeah.
kind of recap what you talked about today. I think it's imperative that we set clear boundaries, not only for ourselves, but others. I know within our community, we struggle a lot with boundaries with our family members, boundaries with
Mm-hmm.
our friends,
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, like you stated, the allegiance that we have to other people, whether it be family, friend, homie, homeboy, homegirl. We
Right.
have an allegiance versus having relationship, right? And I think those are very key pointers. So I want to recap some of the things that you said. You said to write your life script
Mm-hmm.
and stick to that life script. And
Right.
you can have characters, but you're the main character in your life script, right? And those characters are going to be in your life script based off of how you see them, not necessarily how they come about. They just,
Oh, absolutely.
some characters want to take over and become the main character in your life script.
Think
We're not
about
trying
think
to do
about
that.
actors who show up and they're like, "So I'm going to take the leading role in this
No,
movie," and the director's like, "You'll be the extra in the coffee shop. Like, go sit
right.
down somewhere."
Go
It's the
sit
same thing. Yeah,
down.
yeah, it's the
Right.
same thing.
Yeah. And then you talked about the allegiance. I think that is so key. Can you please recap that for me? The allegiance versus the relationship.
Absolutely. People have confused their relationships, be them friendships, romantic relationships, and family relationships. They have confuse those with allegiance. And in allegiance, when you make an allegiance, you are basically saying it doesn't matter. It does not matter what happens. I am here. I am going this direction. And that is your choice, but understand the amount of things you sacrifice to maintain that allegiance. Right there, we all know people who are friends who should not be friends anymore. There's no purpose. There's no reason. There's nothing in that friendship that is healthy or beneficial to either one of them. We all know people who get invited to Thanksgiving dinner who just shouldn't be on the list anymore. Like, they'll forever be your uncle. That doesn't mean they have to sit at the table. And so we all know people who pledge allegiance to the block, pledge allegiance to the hood, pledge allegiance to their group of friends, pledge allegiance to a stupid color. Like, whatever it is, you're pledging allegiance to things that are adding no value to you. And basically what you are doing is making yourself secondary to the bigger pot of whatever that thing is. Mm-hmm. So I'm secondary to this neighborhood. I'm secondary to this gang, to this color. I'm secondary to the allegiance of my family. And a lot of people do not like when I say that. But your family, many people's family, is the most damaging allegiance they have in their life.
Mm-hmm. Woo! Let's just sit that right there for one moment. Because I don't think people understand that. People don't understand that. You pledge allegiance to your family, and your family has this bond of fear, brokenness, things, not goal setting, not things that are in relationship with what you're trying to do, right?
Absolutely.
When you're trying to go in a certain direction and you have goals set, you're sticking to your life script, but the thing that will anchor you, that will keep you from reaching your goal most times is your family.
And it's because they need you in a place that makes them comfortable. Not you. Not you. Because if it's you, then I'm happy that you're about to go live an hour away from the hood because you bought the house and you got the degree and you're doing your thing. Congratulations. Oh, no. That's not what family says. Family's like, what do you mean? Who's going to take me to the grocery store? I thought you was going to be down the street. Why would you go to this school? Why would you go get that free education across the country when we have cookouts every Saturday? What are you doing? I'm not comfortable with what you're trying to accomplish.
Woo!
And unfortunately, people go, you're right. Let me make you more comfortable. All right. But then 10, 20, 30 years down the road, they wonder, why am I not where I wanted to be? Because you haven't been setting the rules.
And you've abandoned your script. You've made those people main characters.
You never had a script. It was never your movie. You let it go a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Now you're, as you said earlier, now you're just playing a role in all of their movies. And I hate to tell it to you, but a lot of their movies are B movies that never come out of dollar theaters. So, but it's a choice you make.
It is the choice that we make.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, Damian, this is so good. I hate that Instagram limits us to an
That's
hour.
All right. But all right.
We are going to have to come back and do a part 2 because this is such a needed conversation.
Absolutely.
I know for a fact, especially with Black women, we do a lot of abandoning of ourselves. I've noticed it's just been this thing where we will abandon our purpose for the role of being someone's trophy.
Yeah.
We will abandon our purpose to be someone's trophy, right? And I've seen it. I've done it. I've seen my friends do it. And you will blink. The conversation I had with my daughter, I said, you give warm and fuzzy. and you will blink and you will be 30, have not accomplished anything that you're supposed to accomplish, but you've been the warm and fuzzy for somebody else's movie.
And that's not a skill set. I hate to say it. That's not a transferable skill set.
Right.
It ages, and it ages out.
It ages out.
So, and here's the other thing that I see a lot of times happening real quick. When that happens, right? So when you don't set those boundaries at 20, at 25, even at 30, right? Or you don't set them at the beginning of the relationship, or you don't set them at the beginning of your professional journey. Then the only thing that is second to not setting boundaries is setting boundaries out of revenge or out of pain, right? And so then what happens is you will hear people say, and because you said, you know, Black women, I've seen this happen in our community. I've seen it happen with my mother. I've seen it happen where you go, I will never do that again, right? That is now my boundary. There are times when that's appropriate, but most of the time, the boundary wasn't the issue, right? The fact that either you didn't set that boundary at the beginning was the issue. The fact that you thought you wanted that boundary, but you never enforced it was the issue. The fact that you never communicated it was the issue. Or the fact that the other party overstepped it and you were like, but I mean, that's them, so it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And now you go, never. Now the boundary that was here is like here. Like you can't, I'm not doing nothing, right? And it's like, I used to always say, people will say like, oh, I cook, for example. And so let's say I am dating somebody and I'm cooking and I cook every day. And all of a sudden that person cheats and goes and gets married to somebody else. Like, and people will actually go, I'm not cooking for nobody else. You see what happens?
Right.
That's not the issue. That's not the thing, right? But we don't know. So we just start making all these weird new rules to try and figure it out. But if you create the story from the beginning, it is easy to identify where things went wrong. And then you don't feel bad when those people aren't there because they never fit the script. It's okay. They're not supposed to be. Right.
And people that are supposed to be, I think people, you don't have to go looking for those people. I think the people that are supposed to be in your script will align with whatever your purpose is, and they will respect the boundary.
I'm telling you, they will respect
attract
the
whoever
boundaries.
you're supposed to attract while you are on your purpose-driven path, right?
Yep.
If they are a person that actually falls off or they have a rebuttal to your boundary, they're not supposed to be there anyway.
Somebody told me, I was talking to somebody, one of my clients, and they were asking me, well, if I set boundaries, right? If I set really tough boundaries and I stick to them, then how did they phrase it? They said something like, oh, if I set really tough boundaries and people come in and then they don't stick to the boundaries, so they go, right? They don't stick to the boundaries and I get rid of them. And they were like, yeah, but what happens is you get beat down over time. And I was like, no, it's actually the exact opposite, right? Like, imagine you own a fast food restaurant and every time somebody comes in and all you sell are burgers. And every time somebody comes in, they're like, I want chicken. And you run around and make chicken. And then you run around and make pizza. And you run around and make taco. You will be exhausted at the end of the night.
Right.
But if people come in and go, can I get a pizza? And you go, we don't sell pizza. And they go, all right, I'll go somewhere else. Cool. Can we get tacos? We don't have those. You got to go somewhere else. I don't care if 100 people come in. You won't be tired. You'll be like, no, we're good. Those people who weren't supposed to be here, no, they weren't supposed to be here. They've moved on. I haven't lost anything.
Right.
A little bit of time, a little bit of experience, but most of the time you learn from those things. But when you keep a boundary set, people act like, well, let me let this person in for 6 months to figure it out. Listen, give them 60 minutes. Most of the time, set enough boundaries clear enough, that's all you need. 60 minutes, people will be like, you know what? That's a little bit much for me.
I'm good. Right.
I'm good.
Right.
I'm good.
Oh my God, this conversation has been so good. You
Thank you.
guys,
Thank
has
you.
this conversation not been good? Setting up boundaries. This has been so good with Damian. We've got to do this. We got to do a part two
I'm in.
because
I'm down. I'm
I
down.
think that this conversation, we could just go on, go on, go on. Tell me, what are you working on now? Give me your social media so that my crew can go and follow you. I can
Yep.
put it, on my page so that they're aware of what you are doing and what you're working on.
Yeah. Right now, still obviously pushing the book. Still doing coaching, one-on-one coaching. So at my social, which is at Damian.McGee, very simple. There's a link where they can click if they want to do a free consultation if anybody's interested in coaching. And then beyond that, I'm actually working on a course that I'm going to build out, which basically walks you through the steps of setting your boundaries, learning how to get them down into that 2 sentence explanation, and then just some keys on maintaining them as you move forward so that you can be comfortable that when people aren't walking away from you when you hold on to your boundaries, they're walking to something easier,
That's
and you'll be
good.
okay with that.
That's good. That's the nugget for tonight.
Yep. Yep.
Damian, it has been a pleasure to talk to
Absolutely.
you and pick your brain about boundaries. You guys, please go and follow Damian. I will put it's in all my posts this week. Damian, Damien,
IAN.
IAN, sorry.
Yep.
DAMIAN dot MCGEE on Instagram. Please
Yep.
support him. Go buy his book and follow everything that he's doing. If you want to get a free consultation, please make sure that you click on his link on his page so that you can get the consultation. And perhaps he might become your boundaries coach.
Absolutely.
Also, you
Absolutely.
guys, my call to action is I want you to share this. We're going to be on Instagram TV probably right after this. Share it with your tribe. Share it with your friends. Share it with your good girlfriends or your good homeboys that have not set clear boundaries. Also, if you want to be first to know about webinars, lives, group coaching, workbooks, and more, make sure that you follow Heal Black Joy here on Instagram, TikTok, as well as Facebook. We're going to bring a lot of content, you guys, that is concerning us healing our joy. We had a lot of people in the last 6 months that died, and we know that their joy was just not there. For whatever reason that is, I want to be a part of the solution. Damian is definitely a part of that solution. We want to heal Black joy. So thank you guys for participating on tonight. And until next Thursday, go try to heal your Black joy. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome, you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Thursday Talks at Heal Black Joy. And in today's conversation, we're going to be talking about what healthy communication looks like. I'm super duper excited about who we're going to have on tonight. I think he's going to be ready when he comes in. I'm going to bring him in. But I'm going to introduce myself first. Hi, I'm Lola Troy, the host and curator of Heal Black Joy, the learning platform for our community to heal our Black joy with tangible and attainable programs for the mind, body, soul, relationships, and business. Today, my guest is Mr. Larry Stark Jr. Larry is a certified life coach, certified anger management specialist, and relationship counselor who is a mentor and gives his clients the stark, naked truth. He's also the owner of a men's beard and skincare line called Mansa. So we're going to try to get him in. See where he is. Let's see if we can get him in. You gotta come in. You gotta come in. Okay. Hey, I think he's in, so I'm going to try to get him in now. Hi.